It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero. It's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay. Today's show is being brought to us it's being brought to us fully by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. Get a copy right now, Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. Welcome to our post-fight show. And we're going to be joining me right now is my man Alex Papali. Let me. There you go. Are you there, Alex?
Good evening, Billy C. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hey, we just finished watching a pretty good card. I'll give you my overall thoughts. But let's start off with the last fight. Anthony Joshua defeats Otto Wallin in a fight that went exactly as I thought. And, he stopped him. What's your thoughts on the fight?
I thought he looked very good. And I think that he's looked better than he's looked in a very long time. And I think that, he looked the most important thing, I think, is that he looked comfortable. He hasn't looked comfortable in a fight in a long time. Now, maybe that was because he beat this guy twice as an amateur and had him as a sparring partner. Now, if that's what it requires for him to look comfortable, then I'm not sure how much we should take away from the win. However, he looked about as good as you could look. So I think that, all credit to him. He looked very sharp, powerful. He pressed every moment of the fight. He fought smart. I think one of the things when the sound finally came back, one of the things that
wait a minute. The sound was out? I thought it was just really quiet there.
Yeah, the sound came out, and I think the garter snake, Sergio Mora, said that that he's not the same combination punching guy that he used to be, and I think that's accurate. He steps in and maybe fires 2 shots and then steps out a little bit. He used to be a lot more aggressive. And, I think that's from being knocked out. The more you stay in there within striking range, the more damage you could do, but you can also be damaged. And I think he's learned the hard way that he doesn't have the greatest chin in the world. So he fights more cautiously now. And I think that was the only sign of it in this fight, because he knew what was in front of him, and yet he still didn't stay, in punching range the way he used to, which made him a lot more exciting. But I think that, I think it's definitely a good win.
Well, AJ improves to 27-3 now, right? And 24 wins coming by knockout. I agree with you, except I think he needs to show. I think when we talk about Deontay Wilder, we'll I think it'll come into play. But what I'm going to say now, but I think he needs to increase a mean streak for him. I think he needs that at this point in his career. I think that he did fight too cautiously, previously, and even in this fight, to a degree, I thought he fought cautiously. There was no way physically Wallin was going to compete with Joshua. Anthony Joshua, going blank here, and I just thought that AJ should have attacked him and made a little quicker work of him, even though the fight didn't go that long. I just didn't think Wallin deserved to be in the same ring, honestly. And hopefully AJ improves. He needs to go in for the kill, I think, a little more. I don't think he should fight cautiously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think,
I mean, even though he does have a suspect chin, Alex. I mean, and I agree that he knows that. But at this point in his career, the way boxing is today, and people write you off for one loss, I mean, he needs to do that.
yeah, I think that's the thing about him. He's a big, strong guy, fight like that. Um, and I think that, when he throws caution to the wind, because it is one of those things. If you're big and strong, and you move quicker, you can do the damage you need to do before he can hit you, before the other guy can. And for a while, that worked with him. And then little Andy Ruiz changed everything. So,
But give Andy Ruiz credit. He's a busy fighter,
definitely.
and the thing about the fight, and we'll get to all the other fights, but the thing about the Ruiz fight with AJ when he lost, he wasn't expecting this little pudgy guy to just be throwing as many punches as he was, and that's my point about him needing to be a little more aggressive, because if you hit him, he kind of stops in his tracks, and he has to. It takes him. It seems it takes him a while to reset. And I personally think a guy like Sugar Hill would be more beneficial to him in the corner than Davidson. I that's just my opinion. But Otto Wallin, I just he had that one good fight. I mean, Tyson Fury has proven to at times not get up for fights, and he had that one good showing against Tyson Fury, and everybody regarded him as something really special when he really didn't fight anybody else. I'm not shocked at the outcome at all. I know you and I were texting back and forth, and I predicted a KO. Wasn't a hard prediction, but I think Otto Wallin is a good. I hate to use the term, but I think he's going to become a good gatekeeper in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a serviceable guy, and I think that it depends, because it's interesting the way the heavyweight division is sort of fleshing out, and in some cases I really mean flesh, because we had one guy who was 99.5 pounds heavier than his opponent. And
we'll get to that. Just calm down. We're gonna go to every single one, right?
So when you talk about flesh, there's a lot of flesh.
Yeah. I mean, he was a donut away from 350, but that's besides the point.
But yeah, in terms of talent, there's not lots. There's not a lot of. There's guys that can maybe do one thing well, but they can't do everything.
But they don't get the chance. But the problem is they don't get the chance because they're not challenged anymore, because of the illusion that an undefeated record is what people want to see. And until that changes, which it may never change, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get one-dimensional fighters. And I mean, we're going to talk about Deontay Wilder right now. That's a great example of a guy that was, I said it for how many years? He's a one-trick pony, I got called racist. Everybody was against me, no, he's not. But he even displayed that worse today because he was trying to establish a jab that he couldn't follow through. One point I want to make before we get into that fight. I love Michael Buffer, but it's time to hang it up, man. It reminds me of when they kept wheeling out poor Dick Clark for the New Year's Eve show. Yeah, I mean, listen, no disrespect, but it was sad to watch it, and I don't want to see Michael Buffer like that. I think that it was pretty obvious that his voice isn't where it is. He's in his 70s. He's done it all. Please, they bring him in for the two big events. Mark did a great job. They didn't need Michael Buffer to come in and do that. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Joseph Parker, he won the fight and looked fantastic against Deontay Wilder. I scored the fight 118-110. I did give Deontay Wilder 2 rounds 10 and 12 I gave him, and I think I was just giving him I felt sorry for him rounds, even though I loved every minute of it. He was stumbling around the ring, Alex. Okay, first of all, he was stumbling around the ring. He's throwing one punch at a time. I mean, he just really. You could say that the wins, or I should say, the losses at the hands of Tyson Fury beat him up and ruined him and everything else. Which is, I know Sergio Moro was suggesting that, once you get knocked out, but they also pointed out, and this is one thing I do like about the Zone. They also pointed out that if you really look at his resume, again, something I've been saying for years and years, he never fought anybody. The only guy that he ever fought that was good, really, was Tyson Fury. And we all know what happened in those 3 fights. Technically, he lost all 3 of them. But that's my opinion. And I think when you add the knockout losses and the fact that his age, and the fact that there's a lot of tape on Deontay Wilder out there to study for, and Parker just looked, so much stronger. I disagree with the game plan that they kept going after Deontay in the last round. I really would have played it safe because I did give that round to Deontay Wilder, but I don't even think he has the same power anymore, Alex.
Yeah, I think definitely the layoff did not help him in the least. I mean, he fought one round.
The lack of talent, I think, was just exposed.
Yes. Well, and I think what you add to that, fighting 1 round in 2 years or more, that's just not that doesn't help anybody. I agree with you. I think his legs looked unsteady. And
they never were steady. They even looked worse.
Yeah, and I mean, he looked like a baby deer at times.
He did. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And I think that the thing about him is that like we were saying over text, I don't think that there has ever been, that I could think off the top of my head, I really can't think of a top-ranked heavyweight who was as top-ranked for as long as he has, who has been so under-equipped. He is like this enormous artillery piece, but that's it. And Parker fought a really smart fight in the sense that if you're going up against a big, powerful artillery piece, you don't stand right in front of it and stand in one place, because that gives it time to target you and nail you. He was constantly moving forward. And that was the other thing that's amazing, is when you press him and he goes backwards, he has no answers.
No answers.
And I think that was another thing that even at one point, Chris Mannix, I think, pointed out that even against, and like you said, just in terms of his previous opposition, he lost every single round against Luis Ortiz before he came up with the shot to put him to bed. So I think that's the thing about him, is that he matched up really well with Tyson Fury. And so they gave us those 3 terrific fights. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they make the AJ fight, because I think AJ is limited too. And I think he's somewhat fragile. I think tonight was sort of a little bit of, we saw a little bit of mirrors there, because he was so comfortable with who he had in front of him. Because if you think about it, he did not look good against Helenius. And Helenius was a big, strong guy.
He didn't really look that great in the second fight against Ruiz either. And I've always been a great, I've been a big AJ fan. But, the thing is I think they are going to, I know they were talking at the end of the fight, fight what's his name? Hrgovic. And, so on and so forth. But I do think that they'll make the Deontay Wilder fight, because I think it might be a safer fight for AJ, and to sell it could be a redemption fight for Deontay. Yeah. I think that Parker's going to go on to get a mandatory title shot, and I believe that some of the other fights on that card, the winners of the fights on that card, which we're going to get to in a second here, should fight each other. because that is the kind of matchups we need in the sport of boxing, especially in the heavyweight division, to keep it going. Andy Ruiz seems to be the odd man out, because he's a dangerous fighter, although he didn't sound too with it tonight, but neither do I. But the truth of the matter is that in the Deontay Wilder fight, I noticed a lot of negativity with Deontay, before, during, and after the fight, and I saw all great things from Joseph Parker. So it's going to be interesting to see where they each go from there.
Parker fought a really smart fight. And one of the things that was interesting was Wilder can't fight on the inside at all. And I think that was smart for Parker to crowd him, because you could see that at times Wilder was like hitting at him like this.
He can't. It looks like he doesn't even know how to throw punches. He actually looked worse tonight from a technical point of view than he's ever looked in my opinion.
He really, and I think some of that is just incredible amount of rust, but I think he's always been that kind of guy that he needed you to be out in front of him so that he could fire those great big shots.
Even when he was throwing punches, he had no idea. He didn't even know where the punches were going to end up, And Parker's movement, the only thing that I could say that Parker should improve and maintain the style that he fought tonight, except be a little more aggressive maybe, is head movement. Although he was moving and appearing to give Deontay, a tough time to hit the target, I didn't see much head movement.
No,
to be honest with you.
No, it really seems like a lost art. I saw a clip on YouTube recently of Cus D'Amato's gym, and there was every single kid that was in the gym was moving their heads back and forth. The little ones, the tall ones, everybody's moving their heads. You don't see it anymore.
No.
Because it makes sense, because why do you want to leave your head in one spot? Even if you are just, I don't know.
Well, think of it.
This target is harder to hit. And
think of this. Just imagine this: Joseph Parker against Deontay Wilder, except Joseph Parker's doing Mike Tyson head movement. He wouldn't have been hit, and he would have knocked him out. And I love the fact that Andy Lee is moving up in my opinion as a quality trainer. And I love the fact not only did they come up with a game plan, but part of that game plan was to continuously work the body. It's something that I said that fighters, I was shocked that fighters didn't do against Deontay. And they were talking about him coming in at, 213 pounds as his ideal weight. Well, when you add 213 pounds to those chicken legs and no movement, no footwork, no nothing, I don't know if that's a true statement.
Yeah, it's interesting how and I think, it's not uncommon. I guess there are certainly examples of really powerful punchers that had, that kind of a stick figure type body. Tommy Hearns, even Diego Corrales, but he was somebody who could fight on the inside. Alexis Arguello were all tall and thin, heavy punchers. Deontay Wilder was an incredibly
but they knew how to throw. They knew how to throw.
I mean, all those guys, started, and I think that was one of the things that was that was always working against Deontay Wilder, is that he started late. He didn't start boxing until he was like 20 years old or something, and he went pretty far when you think about it to win a bronze medal. When you just started, he had like 30 amateur fights or something. So
I think 36 or 26, but he had Shelly Finkel, and Shelly Finkel hand fed him cupcakes all the way until, and it was a successful run, and they sold it, and his crazy, attitude. I mean, the young fans bought into it.
Yeah.
Hey, more power to him financially. He's happy. He's a little too happy. I mean, he just seemed a little.
Well, the ayahuasca will do that.
Yeah, But two comments I want to make about the fight. We'll move on to the next one. It seemed to me by the third round that Wilder was actually fighting scared. I don't know if he was acting like he knew something that we all didn't, but he seemed like he was fighting scared. And to me, Joseph Parker, from the minute he entered the ring, had that look on his face like he knew something. It reminded me, it wasn't the same look, but the result was the same. It reminded me, and I'll never forget it, of Evander Holyfield's look when he was walking down the aisle during the first fight against Mike Tyson. It was like he knew that outcome was already done. And I got that feeling from Joseph Parker, too. And during the fight, Wilder looked like he was fighting scared.
Yeah, Parker definitely seemed like he was just in the zone, from, like you said, from the walk to the ring, even in the stare down. And I think maybe that was the thing is, especially, I don't know, I've gone to a shaman here in Connecticut a few times, and he talks about, because he learned in the jungles of the Amazon, and when you take ayahuasca there, your spirit animal comes to you. And maybe Deontay Wilder's spirit animal warned him about this giant kiwi bird that was going to whoop his ass.
Maybe all he took was a couple of hits of acid. Maybe somebody, But one last thing on this fight, I just got to give credit to Joseph Parker. I mean, that 8th round, he literally beat the living shit out of Deontay Wilder. I mean, credit to Wilder for standing up, but he took an ass whipping in that round.
He did, and I think no matter what it is, if he's damaged goods from the Tyson Fury fight, whatever, he's not what he used to be. And I think that's why, if anything, that the fight with AJ is easier to make.
Yep.
But
for AJ, and listen, when you're believing your press clippings, and the sad thing about it, not that we'll never know if he ever could have been anything. I mean, we're making it sound like he never accomplished anything. He accomplished a lot, okay?
And it just reminds you, it's amazing how much this sport can change in the matter of just a couple of fights. Because think about this. A few years ago, we were talking about, oh my God, AJ versus Wilder, what a fight. And then it was like Fury versus Joshua. Oh my God, what a fight. And then, and now all those fights have just dissipated,
Well, because nobody wants to fight anybody. And I think that Wilder was a great example of a guy that, because he was hand-fed cupcakes and he was able to knock them out with that right hand, which, let's all admit, I mean, was one of the most powerful shots in hands in boxing. But when you don't get taught anything else, like defense, footwork, maybe a jab. Tonight, I saw him throw more jabs than he ever threw in his life, in every other fight combined. I mean, when you don't get taught any of that, you become reliant on that one thing that gets you to, the W. And then when you're hurt, it automatically, you go to it again, and you fighting a guy that has a little bit of talent, and they're going to expose that. And the only guys that he ever fought that are able to recognize that was Tyson Fury and Joseph Parker. So, I mean, nobody did him any favors except for, their bank accounts.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, to put it in perspective, in a historical perspective. I think it is important to note that as much as today was fun, I really enjoyed, today. And the thing about heavyweights is it's like the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, The Girl with the Curl poem is, when they're good, they're very, very good. But when they're bad, they're horrid. And today they were pretty good. It was fun. Fights were fun. But I mean, let's face it, a guy like Jess Willard, who's not even a top 20 all-time heavyweight champion, maybe not even top 25. I don't know. Some old timers would probably argue me about that. He mopped the floor with Deontay Wilder. And it's just amazing to think the oodles of cash these guys can make today, and not be as talented as previous guys. And I wouldn't be surprised if, well, maybe he won't get into the Hall of Fame, but because he's a heavyweight, I mean, Michael Moore's getting into the Hall of Fame this year. Yeah. So I do think
they're running out of people.
Yeah. So, I think that I don't know. And even Michael Moorer. Michael Moorer, you could knock him out. So that's the thing about Wilder, is when you got an atomic bomb in each glove, if you land, you win. You could win.
You gotta, all you need is the boxing skill and the balls to go after Wilder, and you're gonna knock him out. End of story. Yeah. And I'll quote Mae West, getting back to what you said. Mae West said, "When I'm good, I'm good. But when I'm bad, I'm even better." But anyway, hey, in a non-heavyweight fight, in a world unification light heavyweight fight, Dmitry Bivol, he won his fight with a unanimous decision over Lyndon. Actually, it was a stoppage over Lyndon. No, it was a unanimous decision, 120-107, all three scorecards over Lyndon Arthur. He needed to be a little more vicious. He needed a knockout in this fight. I don't know what to think of Bivol, but I don't think he stands a chance with Peter Beef.
It's a tough one. I thought they were a little hard on him. They reminded me of HBO sometimes, about being as critical as they were. He looked great.
He looked great, but
he's an accurate puncher. He's a volume puncher.
He needed to knock this guy out.
Yeah, I think the fact that he didn't stop him, that hurts him. However, I don't think it takes the shine off the matchup with Beterbiev. I think that's one of the best like a lot of people, that's one of the best matchups in the sport. Beterbiev is the nightmare creature of boxing. I don't think there's anybody pound for pound who hits harder, with the exception of the guy we're going to see very early in the morning, the day after Christmas, which I cannot wait. But in terms of, larger men, Beterbiev is just fearsome. The thing about Bivol is that he will have to be on that whole fight against Beterbiev, because if he makes a mistake, it's good night, Irene. So that fight, I don't know. I think I lean towards Beterbiev, because if he lands, he wins. But
that's where
Bivol is extremely talented. He's got one of the most beautiful jabs in the sport right now,
and he's a smart fighter.
Yeah,
he knows how to use the ring. The big, thing that they were arguing about was, did a body shot hurt him, or was he playing possum? Nobody will ever know. He never seemed hurt to me in this fight. I do give Lyndon Arthur credit for going as long as he did when he was dropped in the 11th round.
He's going to have a splitting headache tomorrow.
Well, I figured, after he was dropped with that body, a solid body shot dropped him in the 11th round. I thought Bivol should have finished the show right then. And the fact that he didn't, credit to Arthur for surviving that round. But the 12th round, I thought that Dmitry Bivol had a great opportunity to finish the show and knock him out. Although he tried towards the end of the round, I can't believe that he was winded, which, because that's one thing about Bivol. He never, ever, I've never seen him breathe hard. Yeah. I mean, he always seems like he's in good shape. So I was a little surprised that he didn't jump all over him. But then again, he's fighting smart. He knows he's got a big fight on the horizon. Why take the chance? I don't know. I didn't think Arthur posed any threat to him throughout the whole fight.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about boxing, is there's two kinds of tired in boxing. There's arm weary, and then there's gassed. I don't think he was gassed by any means. I think he needed a little bit of a rest, because he threw so many punches, and he needed to just recoup for a few seconds, and then he got back on him. But there was a one moment, and I think, yeah, the garter snake did point it out that when he did sting him to the body. But you're right. I don't think it was tremendous, and you can never tell what a good fighter is really good at lying, and they don't tell you when they're hurt. And I remember in the first fight with Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins, there's a moment where Bernard Hopkins takes a body shot against Roy Jones that sounds like a rifle shot went off, and you see no reaction from Hopkins. I'm sure that hurt like hell, but he doesn't let you know it. Good fighters won't let you know. And so I think that, I think some of that was going on there.
You can't listen. B Hop, who I was critical of for most of his career, I realized, he's old school and he was mentally strong. Today's fighters, not so much. They're not mentally strong.
Definitely not in the heavyweights. Yeah, the heavyweights, they're not.
They're all seeing. You're hearing every single one of them are seeing. Fight therapists and all. Fight therapists. I never heard of.
Well, and some of these guys, there was I can't remember now who it was, but on ESPN recently, these millennials, they'll fight with anybody, and he was in the middle of a fight and he's arguing with the referee. Yeah. And Robert Garcia's like, dude, leave the referee alone. What are you doing?
You're
fighting somebody.
One thing I want to mention before we get to the next fight, I tell you, to be honest with you, I love Saudi Arabia for boxing. I think it's great, and I hope they continue with that. But in a fight that I really enjoyed for a lot of reasons, Daniel Dubois scored a 10th round TKO over 300. I had to read this twice. 333 pound Jarrell Big Baby Miller. I never liked
huge baby.
Never liked him. But I'll give him credit. He's got a chin like you wouldn't believe. But Daniel Dubois did a great job in this fight. He did take some shots, and I was surprised that he didn't incorporate the jab like Bear Giles would say. Oh no, I don't mean Bear Giles. I mean he sounded didn't what's his name, Darren Barker sound like the Bear Giles.
Oh yeah.
I kept waiting for him to just all of a sudden eat a caterpillar or something. But the
repel down the side of the
arena. He was good though, but he was right when he was saying that Dubois should have been fighting a little more on the outside with the jab, because he was effective with the jab, and Miller was driving forward the whole fight, pushing forward, and a good jab and some footwork would have won the fight for Dubois anyway. But as it turned out, I thought it was an entertaining fight, and I couldn't enjoy the ending more.
Yeah, it was the most entertaining heavy bag workout I've seen in a long time. Yeah. Jarrell, gigantic baby Miller. It does make you wonder, how effective those PEDs are at increasing your volume punching. Because
he used to throw a lot of punches. Yeah, I know.
He used to throw like 80 to 100 punches.
It's hard to do that. Butterbean never threw that many.
Yeah, I guess when you're that huge, it's it's difficult. But even because I was thinking, Tony Tubbs was always a big guy, and he could throw. He had real busy hands. Buster Mathis was a big guy with busy hands, but even this guy outweighed them by like 60, 70 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
Yeah, so I think that, and that was another thing. There was a moment in that where, I don't know. I guess, the older I get, the more of a curmudgeon I think I'm becoming, because I get upset about little things, and that whole idea that I think Max Kellerman really started it, that who would you rather be? That kind of thing, that's not a way to look at a fight, because at one point Mannix was talking about that, Dubois was up 4-0. And he's like, but at this point, I think I'd rather be Jarrell Miller. No, I'd want to be the guy who's up 4-0.
I'm sorry. Listen, I don't like Mannix and I don't like Todd. They're two, but I like Sergio. I've enjoyed Sergio Mora, and I love it because he said it best. He goes at the end of the fight, he's going about Darrell Miller. He's going, he's a cheater. He got the beating he deserved. Good riddance, he says.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Tony Bellew was saying the same thing.
Tony Bellew, does he have a sense of humor? I mean, I've never seen him smile. I mean, he's got no personality, that guy, Tony Bellew. He really doesn't. For a broadcast.
It was interesting how much of a boys' club it was there. And I think it is because of just the way that women are looked at in Saudi Arabia, or, it seemed almost like they were in one of the kingdoms of Mongo or something.
Well, like we were saying through text, I'll say it. It looked like, His Majesty, no disrespect, was being a trendsetter, bringing back the pizzeria and sunglass look, because those, whatever they call them, what do they call them?
I don't know what on a woman it's a hijab, but I don't know what it is on a man.
All right, the headset, okay, that looked like a pizzeria tablecloth,
like a tablecloth
with the sunglasses. I mean, I was just like, oh, it's a trendsetter if people start wearing that now. But anyway, next fight before we get tossed off the air. In a heavyweight fight, I actually enjoyed this one too, because when I first saw Makhmudov walk out there, I was like, this guy looks like a total killer. I mean, the way he was moving his head and the look on his face. Then the bell rang, and I was like, this guy can't even fight. I mean, he was like, he had cement shoes on. He had no defense, slow as molasses. And Agit Kabayel just put on a show. I mean, this kid looked great, in his win, in stopping him. And talk about getting stopped by a body shot. I mean, he was done. Makhmudov. But I enjoyed KBL's win, and I think that he deserves a big fight next. That would be a good fight. Him and maybe Sanchez. We'll get to that in a minute. But your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, I think Sanchez, Kabayel, or Kabayel and Dubois. Those fights would be fun. Athletic, smaller heavyweights than some of these giants. And I think that was one of the things that was so much fun about that. I love seeing a real tall guy get knocked out. One of my favorite knockouts of all time is Corey Sanders knocking out Vlad Klitschko. Just love that knockout. There's something about those big guys when they go down, there's just all arms and legs all over the place, and they go down hard,
Like I'll quote Tuco in one of my favorite movies, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. He said, when the guy had him, he says, I like to fight big guys like you, because when you hit the ground, you make a big noise.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and that was the thing that Kabayel, just in microcosm, of course, he gave us a good example of why Mike Tyson's style was effective at heavyweight. When you're small against these bigger guys, if you're speedy and can close that distance quickly, then being small is not a disadvantage. It can be an advantage because they're not used to that. You're posing a dimension that they don't often see. And I think that's definitely what happened for Makhmudov, because he came in there, if this was like a Gladiator movie or something, you'd be like, oh my God, he's going to just mop the floor with this guy. But no, this isn't medieval times. And I think that's what was cool about it. And I think because that you got that also with the Big Baby Miller fight, was that, size matters not, as Yoda says. In this sport, it's about skill. Looks don't win fights. Now, not that Miller looked like he was going to win much other than a pie eating contest. But I do think that was one of the things. Kabayel definitely is a guy that, he's undefeated. He's talented. I definitely want to see him again. And that was a good scalp for him to get, because I don't know, that was definitely, and it was he hurt him so badly to the body, and Makhmudov really tried, but he was leaning over, man, he was in rough shape.
Listen, I'll be the elephant in the room. I'll take Miller's place for a minute here, but the truth of the matter is Makhmudov showed that he has zero skill except for a little punching power. And when you're fighting guys that are just led to the slaughter, it's no different than Deontay Wilder. And credit to truthfully, credit to Makhmudov's team for even putting him in the ring with Kabayel. But credit to Kabayel because he has some good wins under his belt. I think he's proven to be a legit contender, and I think he deserves some of these other fights. And as long as these guys are willing to fight each other, that could help the sport immensely, especially in the heavyweight division. It's if they start running in the other direction. I mean, let's face it. I'll talk about the whole card in a minute, but there was a lot of fluff there. Most of it panned out the way we expected, but an interesting fight. And I gotta be honest when I say that I didn't really see too much of Jay Opataya prior to today, but man, do I want to see this guy again. The whole fact that he basically had to vacate his title because he was fighting this fight, and he didn't wait for an injured Maris Brias to get better. Thoughts on that short fight over Elizoro?
Yeah, he is, one of boxing's unified champions, legitimate champions. And
no, he's got no belt.
Well, that's it. I go by the TBRB, and he's the guy who beat the guy, so he's that to me, that just talked about how ludicrous the sanctioning bodies are. The fact,
agreed, but now none of them are going to want to fight him,
right? Especially, because he's a badass.
He is.
And
shouldn't move up to heavyweight.
No,
a guy like
yet. Maybe wait a little while, but down the road, him against Usyk might be fun.
Okay, if Usyk if he wins, he's not going to stick around, I don't think. But Jay Opataya, he could be a guy that could bring, at least here in the States, if people start watching him, he could bring some attention to that cruiserweight division, because I think that the cruiserweight division, based on the size of the guys, a maximum of 200 pounds, or actually 199, is the key to big men fighting exciting fights. Because let's face it, some of these heavyweights, a 245-pound, Anthony Joshua, okay, that's a big monster, that's got skill like Lennox Lewis. But then you also see some other guys that are 245 pounds that look like the Pillsbury Doughboy, and they're still in the division too. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's, I think sometimes you get eras where you're reminded, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like to put heavyweights in my pound for pound, because there are times where you're reminded the real talent and the real artiste is below the unlimited class. And I think that we're living in one of those times. And I think that's why, to me, Beterbiev is much more frightening than a guy like a Deontay Wilder, because Deontay Wilder, if you have tools, you could beat him. Whereas Beterbiev is frighteningly powerful, and he's got skills.
I know.
Same thing with, like, who's more terrifying, Deontay Wilder or Terrence Crawford? Terrence Crawford will kick your ass.
Right.
Deontay Wilder, you could kick his ass as long as you don't get hit.
Right.
So that's the thing about boxing, is that it's those balances of all those skills. It's not, The guys that just can do one thing, they're beatable. It's the guys that can do everything
Well,
that
that's
are real dangerous. That's why somebody like Inoue, he's one of the best in I think he is the best in the sport.
Well, I mean, that's why you could always have the argument that the fighters of yesteryear, most of them that made it to even top 10 contenders, could do it all. And today it's a moving thing. In a fight
when you have like a moment where Todd Grisham, I forget which fight it was. I think it was in the Dubois fight where he mentioned Billy Conn and Joe Louis. I was like, please, there is not, in like a sweaty T-shirt that Joe Louis or Billy Conn throws off has more talent than we saw in that whole ring.
No, I know. I hate what people do. But in a fight that, the most exciting part of Hrgovic's win over Dmitry was the post-fight talking when he's like, I don't know. I don't know. I love this guy. I love him. He won the fight. I mean, truthfully, this guy shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have allowed him in the ring. I mean, talk about going for a payday. Either that or this was one of the worst matchmaking jobs in history. I mean, although I thought that Hrgovic was powerful and everything. I mean, did the shots that stopped this kid Dmitry really look that devastating? I mean, yes, they landed, but the way he reacted was just like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't sign up for this,
I didn't know you were going to hit me.
Like, yeah, you did. It's a fucking boxing match, I mean, But
yes, there was elements of it. That fight looked like it could almost be remember Cedric Kushner's heavyweight explosion?
Yeah,
it reminded me a little bit of that.
With the case of money, yeah.
It reminded me a little of that, and I think maybe that's that's okay when you have a card like this that's so loaded. It's okay if there's a couple of fights like that. At least in my opinion, it's when there's like 3 fights and you're sell them all like they're incredible, and they didn't do that with this card because they in the pre-fight Darren Barker made it very clear that he thought that Dmitry was going to get blown out, and he did. So I do think that that
he
was
had
one
10
of the
years.
That
He was 10 years older. The only guy that he ever fought that was even half good knocked him out. Both his losses were against people that were somewhat decent. And then this one, I'm just afraid to. I didn't even look at his record, to be honest with you, but I'm afraid to see who he fought to get the 41 wins. Was it all his sister? Did he fight his sister 41 times?
Yeah, I don't see too many. He got knocked out in one round by David Haye.
Right, when David Haye's comeback,
Yeah.
But, and to open up the show, a guy that I like, Frank Sanchez, fought Junior Fa and won by stoppage. But when I was looking at the beginning of the fight, Fa looked like he was just happy to be there. He's smiling a lot. And then as the fight started, I was getting a little nervous with Sanchez because, I never realized how skinny his legs were. I mean, Tommy Hearns had bigger legs than him. And he seemed to be really struggling with Faye's height, and I thought that Sanchez's footwork seemed very heavy. And then all of a sudden Faye starts affecting him with the jab, and he was utilizing his height well. And then next thing I know, Sanchez drops him in the 6th with a really snappy right hand, and then the end was there in the 7th when he kept putting him down. I thought maybe Sanchez should have come on a little sooner. Your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I thought it ended up looking like a good victory for Sanchez, but I for a while there, I thought, wow, this guy's giving him a little more problems than I expected. Yeah, I think that that's one of the things about this was that, it does make for interesting combinations going forward, because you could have Sanchez Hergovic, or you could have Kabayel versus Sanchez. There's a couple of different matchups can be made.
I like that fight, Kabayel Sanchez.
Yeah.
Or Herkovovich. I mean, it's another one. I don't know. A couple of points that I wanted to make just about the card in general. When did pay-per-view start having commercials? I mean, the whole idea of a pay-per-view is you're paying, and then they have the balls to put commercials on too. I mean, that sucks, and to think that we all got this great card for $39.99. Look, it was a good card. I loved it. I loved the fact that it's in Saudi Arabia, that it's not 2 a.m. here on the East Coast. But I think having my final thoughts on the event itself. I think I love having these fights here. I think it's great for the sport. I think it was great that all the promoters work together. It's amazing what you do when all kinds of money are just thrown at you. I mean, truthfully, that's why they did it. They all made a ton of money. The matchmakers. Grade for this card? I don't know if I'm going to make it that great. I mean, it seemed good for us because we were all excited to see AJ and Deontay and some of these young fighters on the card. I think we lost sight of who the opponents were, or maybe their talent level flew under the radar. I think what you were saying before is the best scenario, that the winners come back and fight each other. I couldn't stand the commercials, like I said. And I think overall, $39.99, I think it was worth it. I don't think it was worth more, and I don't think it was worth less. And I would love to have a similar card come back at the same price.
Yeah, I loved the price. $39.99 was awesome. The commercials, yeah, I'm not too fond of that, especially that they air them during the rest period between rounds. I want to hear the fighter trainer back and forth. I do. I kind of want to see that movie, though. You know me, I love horror movies, so I do kind of want to see that. What was it, Night Swim or something?
The swim. I'll never go to the pool again.
But the AutoZone, I could do without. The fact that it's Saudi Arabia, I mean, of course, their human rights record isn't great, of course, but we're the United States, so we shouldn't be pointing fingers at anybody. They've got the death penalty. We've got the death penalty. When it comes to war, nobody's got a worse track record than us. I think that, and I think that that's another thing that's not uncommon in boxing is you have these principalities with iffy human rights records who have a time to make a big splash on the big stage and the world stage, and that's what they're doing. That was the case with President Mobutu in Zaire with the Rumble in the Jungle, and I think His Excellency Ming the Merciless, or whoever he is, Prince Bonesaw, is doing that over there.
And boxing, and of all the sports, boxing's right there to go. Yay!
Yeah, and I think for me, I think that's one of the reasons why you didn't see that lovely blonde there, Laura Woods. I think that if she showed up in those leather pants and the high heels, I think they would have probably stoned her to death. Yeah, so I don't think that it's going to look different than it does here. I was wondering if they even have round card girls. I bet they don't.
I didn't notice any.
Yeah, I bet they don't.
But hey, they wrote the checks. They wrote the checks. They paid, and it's good. We get to watch the fights early. leave their human rights issues alone.
Right. Well, and I think,
let them just do what they do. We should mind our own business.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of strange because think about it. It's just weird hearing them all thank His Excellency at the end of the fight
every time.
But I think,
I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed if people referred to me as, His Excellency.
His Excellency. But I do think that's for years we heard people thank Don King before they thanked God, or thank Al Heyman before they thank God. Granted, they're not in the same ballpark, but I think a lot of them were His Excellency was the guy who was like the main promoter or
no, he was in charge. He was the
chairman of their athletic commission or something.
No, the Prince of Entertainment.
Oh, okay.
He did all it. He probably does concerts.
He was like the head of the Mohegan tribal nation or something
like that. But you know what? Hey, listen. Like I said, they threw the money around. And you make a good point. They want the recognition and boxing. I mean, they're predicting that's going to become the new mecca of boxing. And you know what? If they keep throwing money around and you keep getting these promoters willing to work together, it's going to be. So for the sport of boxing, and to kind of turn a blind eye to the other issues, hey, they'll be gladly front and center to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if it's the mecca of boxing, it's not far from Mecca. I guess there's some kind of irony there, some poetic justice, I guess.
Well, you know what? All in all, it was worth the $39.99. It's gonna be interesting to see what transpires from here on out. And I tell you, Alex, I'm glad you joined me to do this. This is instead of me doing a show this past Thursday, I decided that this would be our last show of 2023. So we'll be back at the beginning of the year. Like you mentioned, there's a couple of good fights coming our way, and hopefully we'll keep it going. February is a big fight. Usyk and Tyson Fury. And like I told you, I'm going to start doing the local fight scene again, which I'm looking forward to. So I'm sure I'll be seeing you out and about, and we can talk boxing.
Awesome, yeah. And I tell you, I joined the Baldy Nation there.
I see you joined the Billy C Club.
Well, I tell you, I was losing my hair, and I looked kind of like it got to this point of no return, where I looked like kind of a mangy coyote. So, yeah, I went all the way, and I do feel kind of like a supervillain, like I'm gonna get that wall crawler.
Well, it's the beard. It's the beard. Hey, you remember when I first didn't even realize how bald I was. Me and you we were calling that event in Florida at the baseball stadium. Oh. And I was watching a clip, and I'm going. I go, hey John. I was saying to John Muscunis, from LDL TV, the producer and owner of LDL TV, and we were watching a replay, and I said, "There's Alex." I said, "Who's that bald guy next to him?" And he looks at me, goes, "That's you, Billy." Like, holy shit! And I never noticed because it was the first time I ever saw the shot of my head from behind. The camera was coming from behind, and ever since then, it was a different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of feel weird, and it's like, oh, the horror. I feel like Brando,
At least you're not mini me.
Apocalypse now.
At least you're not a mini me. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, Alex, make sure you join us again. I know your schedule is a little tight, but trust me, boys and girls, we're going to work on something for 2024 where we could do some blast of the past. I get emails
that'd be great.
All the time, and I want to incorporate some video with it. I got a lot of good production ideas for us to do those, and it's going to be coming up in 2024. So, Alex, I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I wish everybody else out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So until next time, make sure you tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, Ciao, baby.